Good evening. You know, Billboard magazine this week named Cardi B the most important, I guess, most successful, most valuable player, woman of the year in music. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I actually referenced Cardi B WAP the other night in my Is the Guitar Dead video, and I had just a couple brief comments about it. And I kind of wanted to say something about it. It seemed a little timely. You know, there was so much controversy a few months back about that Cardi B song WAP. I won't say what it's about, what WAP stands for, but I imagine most of us can imagine that. And of course, the big outrage was that it's immoral. I'm going to talk a little bit about that, you know, morality in rock. You know, I was raised on a lot of rock and I enjoyed a lot of rock that was called immoral in its time, so I certainly don't want to, I'm kind of hesitant to judge. I remember when I was in 7th grade, my friend bought a record and we listened to it right in school, right before band. We used to listen to albums right before band. And one of them was George Carlin, 7 Dirty Words You Can't Say on TV. And I think actually today some of those are kind of pretty tame, but he just ripped off those 7 dirty words you can't say on TV. And we were about 13, and you know what the mentality of a 13-year-old male is. And we just were laughing so hard we couldn't believe it. We listened to him say those 7 dirty words you can't say on TV over and over again. We had it memorized, and we would just listen to it just to hear an adult just rip them off like that, so unashamedly in a record you bought in the store was so hilarious to us. And I think back on that, and I think several of those words aren't really that offensive anymore, if you think about it. So, and I don't know what the status of the 7 dirty words is, but I remember seeing it a few years ago, and it didn't seem like they were as shocking to me now as they were then. But I remember that, and I remember just thinking that was so great, you know, and just, oh, you know, the 7 dirty words, and my friends and I would just sit and roar and just listen to that over and over again. So, but you know, George Carlin was actually a very smart man, and a lot of his comedy was actually commentary. And so if you listen to that, he was no dummy. I miss him a lot. But I've liked my fair share of music that people have called immoral. I'm just thinking of, you know, I used to have some Black Sabbath records. I used to have, like David Allan Coe, man, he's got some really, quote-unquote, offensive songs. You know, and then a lot of that music back then, that was before Tipper Gore and warning stickers on records, and you know, a lot of it you just go buy in the store. And I don't think the adults paid attention. It would have all kinds of things on there. So I kind of I'm not going to sit here and pass moral judgment on Cardi B. I remember used to play in a bar, and the jukebox had some one song was called the Rodeo Song, and it would drop F-bombs every couple verses, and people would sit and laugh at that and thought it was funny. So one thing I would say, though, is that song wasn't exactly on the radio all the time. But even in the radio then would play, you know, at least elements of that kind of music. So I guess one thing is it offensive, you know? Well, I'm not really offended at that level. It's not my taste. I don't think it was very attractive. I don't think it was very, what's a good word? Tasteful, you know. There is good taste. You know, Led Zeppelin, you know, for all Robert Plant's occasional forays into R ratings and everything, they're actually a very elegant band, you know. And same with a lot of those bands were very, very well done. But I think there's more of a tendency to censor now. So I actually didn't hear too many people say that Cardi B should be censored. I think a lot of people just thought it was sad that a song like that was number one. You know, when I think of number one, I always think of, you know, I Want to Hold Your Hand, or do they even still have number one records? I don't know. You know, Led Zeppelin never had a number one record. If you think about a lot of the classic rock bands today, they weren't really in that top 40 game, so number one isn't really a good concept to apply to them. But apparently the Cardi B song was number one, however that is figured today. So I think that is kind of interesting, that something that you know, I remember Chuck Berry, My Ding-a-Ling. Actually, you know, there have been, you know, plenty of risque songs with double entendres that were, on the radio. I remember when I was a kid, there was one called Shaving Cream, which was a euphemism for SH, the SH word. The other thing, Cardi B got a little political when she accepted the award. I watched her, and she said it was all the Republicans who were offended by her, and I guess sort of I don't know if that's true, but she talked to Joe Biden and did an interview with Joe Biden, and I guess now that I think about it, a lot of the people that were sort of outraged are people you would consider to be not Joe Biden voters. But so she got a little political. And, I've never really been too crazy about music and politics. To me, I have my political views. I'm sure you do too. And I think it hurts some artists when they get political. I think it's hurt Ted Nugent. Ted Nugent's great. Don't let his politics get in the way of the fact that the man's an awesome guitar player. Especially his stuff he did with Derek St. Holmes. Same with David Crosby. David Crosby wrote Guinevere, Long Time Coming, Long Time Gone. I think he did Wooden Ships with Stephen Stills. Those are such great songs. And I think when he gets so political, it hurts him. So I don't think politics is great in music. Partially, music should bring us together. That doesn't mean there were protest songs in the '60s, and I would not support like a cancel culture type approach to Cardi B if anyone would. She has a right to sing her songs, and people have a right to listen to them. I do think it's kind of funny she blamed Republicans when we've had so much cancel culture. Just last week people were going after Eric Clapton, I guess, of all people, and all the good things he's done. I guess he made some drunken remarks in 1976 in favor of Enoch Powell. All his critics, they apparently have never been really, really drunk in 1976. But he said it and kind of owned it. And but anyway, that's kind of weird that I find it interesting. I think, especially with a lot of younger people, we've kind of raised them to appeal to authority. And when you think about it, rock and roll was often anti-authority, anti-establishment. So going to politicians or corporations and trying to appeal to the sources of money and power and law to try to shut people up isn't very rock and roll. I guess I just think of all the, all the anti-authority stuff in that old rock and roll. So to see young people now, I think it's kind of a snitch culture we've created, We have anonymous report lines, and a lot of countries snitching is encouraged by the government. I could see snitching on people if they're gonna, if they murdered somebody, or you overhear someone plotting to blow up the world or something. Yeah, but I do think we've kind of created sort of a snitch culture, and especially on the internet. But even to some extent, it's rewarded by institutions, and I guess I don't feel like that's very rock and roll. I don't know. I don't know if Cardi B's rock and roll, but she's certainly kind of edgy. She's not rock and roll, but she is kind of edgy. And so we kind of created this culture that goes after people. And I guess I don't associate it that much with Republicans. Now, maybe we used to. I remember Pat Robertson and a lot of people would comment on different records, and Satan words that were hidden in records and things. So it's definitely on both sides of it. But I like rock and roll, and to me rock and roll was always anti-establishment, anti-authority, and running off and saying, oh, he said this or she said that is just not very rock and roll to me. If you think about it, classic rock, a lot of those people said whatever the hell they wanted, and if you didn't like it, you didn't buy their record. And I think a lot of that music kind of flew under the radar. Today we have social media and everything, and everything's so public, but there were all kinds of. John Lennon said, they were more popular than God, which I think was taken out of context. But there have been controversial comments made. But overall, I think old rock and roll was anti-establishment, and I like that about it. I'm not saying be a rebel and do dumb things and throw your life away and drop out or something. But I think running off and complaining all the time and is a kind of snitch culture. And, for thousands of years, cultures of honor have hated the snitch. and there's good reason for that. So that was the one point I kind of wanted to end with was the music of it. I'm not going to sit here and judge her morality, but the one thing I did notice, it was the music. I think I said this the other night. There were 2 notes in that song. 2 notes. I looked it up on Wikipedia, and for personnel, it just had production teams, like engineers. There was, and like if you look up George Harrison, All Things Must Pass, or some of these big albums that used to be done, you look it up, and who played the guitar, who played the bass, who played the organ, and there wasn't one musical instrument mentioned. So I guess it was all done with production. And again, I'm kind of hesitant to criticize that. I remember one time I criticized to a guy I know that records really well. He's just a whiz. He had a big board and just could record stuff and did record stuff that sounded like that was on the radio. And he actually did record a lot of popular bands that actually were commercially successful. And I kind of made a comment, this was back in the day, about Paula Abdul. I didn't think she was very good. She had no talent. She was kind of a cheerleader that got a break singing. And he said something to me. He said, that music's really hard to pull off. That's really well-produced music. So I don't even remember what song it was, but it was one of those MTV songs she did. I think there was a cartoon character in it. Was it Roger Rabbit or whatever, that 2 steps back or whatever. But I made some comment. I didn't think Paula Abdul was any good. And he said, well, I don't know about her, but that music is actually really top-notch in terms of the professional production. And the people that did that really know what they're doing. So I'm even hesitant to criticize the production. But when I looked at that Cardi B song and just kind of read about it before doing this, it didn't look like there was much in the way of actual musical instruments. And that's too bad. Musical instruments you play with your hands. Like in Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, they have a music machine that kind of generates superficial sounds and music. It's kind of music, but it was kind of generated by a machine. You should read Brave New World. I haven't read it in a while, but I do remember that. And there's nothing wrong. Machines can maybe help us make good music, like synthesizers and things. But this was different than that. This was sort of the people had lost some part of their humanity that makes music. I guess we associate that with our hands, our bodies. We play music when there's almost no actual instruments on that I could see. It's really just a bass and a rhythm, and her singing, and she's got about 2 notes in it. To me, that's what I found not offensive, but kind of depressing. I thought, is that what music's coming to? There are 2 notes. There's almost no actual instrumentation in it. There's not really melody. Now, she said, I worked on it. I had 50 different versions of it. That might mean she's so creative and brilliant that she had to come up with all these different versions. It might also mean she didn't know what she was doing, and she sang it different every time because she didn't really have a clue. But anyway, she sang that. Now, again, I'm a little hesitant to judge because I've loved plenty of bad music. In fact, I think I should do a category on bad music. I did one on bad singers. But I remember my dad. Now, my dad taught Browning and Tennyson. He was an English teacher, and I remember him laughing and thinking it was good lyrics when he heard the Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen, She Ain't No Human Being. I don't even know that song, but I just remember, and I don't know if they meant it to be funny, but my dad thought it was hilarious, And it is kind of witty in a way, God Save the Queen, She Ain't No Human Being. I remember, I didn't really like the B-52s, but I remember a guy I knew that he liked good literature and poetry and everything, and one time he said, it was lyrical genius, that B-52 song, where they said, I'm going to jump into a crater, see you later, And there are definitely a lot of songs with bad lyrics that I like, there's a dance sensation that's sweeping the nation, was at the hop, or there's a function at the junction, I wouldn't say that's, that's what your freshman college English teacher would probably call bad poetry. It does rhyme, though, you have to give it that. But I've liked plenty of music that wasn't very good. I would say Louie, And Louie is also, by the way, really obscene. You should hear the Stooges, Iggy Pop and the Stooges do it, or the MC5. God, they'd censor every word out of that thing. Wild Thing, Louie, Hang On Sloopy. Those aren't. But you know what? a lot of those, like Louie, you know, people, that's the quintessential 3-chord rock song that people might make fun of. But grab a guitar sometime and play a great guitar solo in it, you know, kind of a good old MC5, you know, Detroit guitar solo. Sometimes there's actually pretty good playing in it, but you know, but it's not exactly Stairway to Heaven, and it's certainly not, you know, great music in a lot of ways. And maybe that's kind of like Cardi B. It's sort of physical, you know. Louie, it's great to dance to. You tap your foot to it. It feels kind of good if you like that kind of music. But it's probably bad, you know, at least in some objective sense. But, you know, maybe it's like a lot of those movies that are bad. It's actually also good. Obviously, it's good, or all these people wouldn't know that song. I think Cardi B's sort of different than that, because Louie, those are guitar songs, you know, a Wild Thing, and a lot like Hendrix played Wild Thing, and there's a great, awesome solo in it. So I guess I did sort of, I didn't want to say it was like the decline of the world, but I kind of thought that. I looked, and the video was just so dumb, and it wasn't offensive to me. It just seemed so dumb, and not in a. It just seemed so. And I thought, gee, this is where we're going, huh? You know, just you know, inarticulate. You know, 2 notes. You know, I just thought of all the great singers that have sung over the years, even some that, you know, sing about crazy topics or use bad language or something, but. That was my takeaway. So I wasn't offended that much morally. I was offended. I mean, I definitely was shocking in a way, but there's like a coarsening of the culture when that becomes sort of the norm. And it wasn't just because it was dirty. It wasn't just because she was dressed in a skimpy dress. Lord knows she wouldn't be the first person who sung a dirty song and dressed sexy. It wasn't that. It was just how coarse it was. And I don't mean coarse morally. I just mean coarse in terms of, you know, just the whole presentation, inarticulate and dumb and zero talent as far as I could tell. And I thought, you know, that's, I hope it's an aberration if this is the kind of the way music's going. I'm not, that's too bad. That's my take on it. That's my opinion, you know. And everybody, you don't have to have all these guitar heroes and great instrumentation. Maybe someday computers will play a bigger role in music. They already do, you know. A lot of gear and things is, you know, has kind of computers in a box. But I hope it's not going that Cardi B way, where there's really almost no melody or harmony. The basic elements of music are just gone, and people can't even tell the difference really. And so that was my take on Cardi B. So good to her. She's the Woman of the Year in music according to Billboard, and I'm not cutting her down in any way, you know. But I guess. But that was my take. I wasn't offended. I didn't necessarily see it in political terms, like the Republicans are coming after her. But to me, it was the musical quality of it was just appallingly bad. You know, I don't even mind the spoken word. You know, I used to not like rap that much, but I like the spoken word. You know, or people like Johnny Cash. That's the spoken word. The spoken word is a cool thing. You know. When people express themselves with the spoken word. And I think there's been a lot of, in all walks of life, some cool spoken word stuff that maybe isn't, it's sort of almost like poetry music, you know. I like that. I mean, I respect that. And I think a lot of literature comes out of that tradition, actually, and poetry in particular. But I think this was worse. So, not cutting her down, but I just hope we can come up with better things in the future than Cardi B WAP, musically. And I hope we, you know, kind of get the spirit of old music back. Thank you. God bless you. Good night.